Welcome, low ego action heroes. Welcome to episode 175. I'm Debbie Levitt from Delta CX, and we're a full service CX and UX consultancy. We do projects, training, and consulting. Check us out. I still haven't done the site, but there you go. By the end of the month, hopefully, the new site will be up. So welcome. And of course, first, let's thank the people who are donating to the channel at all levels through the YouTube join button, which is easier to find now. Thanks to everybody keeping me in streaming software and chocolate chips. Always, always appreciated. Today's topic is not really traditional CX or UX. I've been getting a lot of questions from some of you about writing books and publishing books now that my third book is available. This is my test copy. I don't have the real ones yet. Customers Know You Suck is out, and this is the hardcover version, so it hurts. It is my third book, and I self-published all three, and so I'm going to be talking today about how I write books, prepare books, publish books, why I haven't used a major publisher and why I'm self-publishing. I'll be talking a little bit about getting your book onto Amazon and publishing. I'll be talking a little bit about preparing your audiobook, which I'm doing now, so hopefully it'll be out by the end of the month, but it's going slower than I hoped. So yeah, we're going to talk about all of these things. I'll be taking your questions, and I did get some questions ahead of time from some people who couldn't be here but wanted to. So first, let's talk about, this is for anything. I'm going to be talking about the business books that I've done. Your book might be anything. Your book might be historical. It might be fantasy, romance. So most of what I'm going to say is could be applicable to you no matter what topic you're writing about. But in my case, of course, I'm talking about business stuff. So business books it shall be. So where do you start? Well, first you start with an idea, and you start with an idea that you think could make a good book, because certainly we've got lots of options right now, and in some ways the book is kind of the worst one, yet it is still a popular thing to do. The reason why I say the book is the worst one is because it's not quite in stone. It used to be, but it's in paper, and if I find a mistake later, if I want to add something later, I can't do that. I have to hope that people come read my blog because I have something new to say. So the book is hard because it's unchanging, and it was one of the reasons that I started this YouTube channel, because then I thought, oh, as I evolve some of my ideas and create new ideas, I have a place to put them, the YouTube channel, and I can always have fresh content, and I can change my mind and so on. So the book is hard because it's unchangeable in that sense. I've already seen things I wish I had added. So you have choices. You can be writing articles, you can be writing a book, you can be writing a small book, a large book. My books tend to be longer, but that's just because of my writing style and the amount of topics I choose to cover. So my books could be shorter, but then there'd be 10 of them instead of 3, or a zillion articles. I'm a little more long-winded, as you can tell. So how do you pick your topic? And again, I think this is where our good old friend meaningful, actionable, helpful kind of comes in. We just did a show about that. So if you're not sure about the meaningful, actionable, helpful framework, come on over to YouTube and search for Delta CX Meaningful, and you can learn all about this little critical thinking paradigm we use in our Friday shows. And I think that to have a good book, you have to have something that's meaningful to people. It makes sense. It's informative. It's hopefully got some good ideas in it. It's helpful. It understands your reader's problem. It solves problems for them. Again, that would be more of a business book. Otherwise, other books might just be entertaining, and that's okay. But if it's going to be a business book, then you probably would want to make sure it's helpful in some way to the reader, that the reader is lifted up and their world is improved in some way, and you want to make sure it's actionable. Point this way, I guess. Actionable in that after people read it, they know what to go and do. They have something they can go and try. I think we've all read articles and books where we walked away going, okay, that was your story or that was your opinion, but I don't think I can do that. Or what am I supposed to do? Or how do I do that? And in those cases, and I'm not going to name names, but let's just say we've all seen books like that. I think that might not be ready to be a book. I think at least a business book is going to have to help somebody do something. A self-help book is going to have to help somebody do something. An entertaining book can just be entertaining. So think about meaningful, actionable, helpful. Also think about the format that is best given the length of your content. Many business books are 40,000 words and up. Many of them are 70,000 words that I've checked out. My new book is probably roughly the length of the Polar Bear Information Architecture book that we often recommend here on the channel. Information Architecture for the Web and Beyond. It's an O'Reilly book with a polar bear on the cover, and my book is probably about the same length. Delta CX was significantly longer, and that was really overwhelming for a lot of people. So while I'm proud of it, and I stand behind the things I said, and some of them have evolved and some of them have not, that many people felt the book was just kind of too long. I think the new book is a little long. It's longer than I intended for it to be, but when my editors, when I asked my editors to cut it to pieces and take things out, they couldn't find anything they wanted to remove. They just thought it kind of worked the way it was. So I've ended up a little bit longer. The new book is 125,000 words. But again, this is just my style. You can certainly write a shorter book, 30,000, 40,000 if it's a business book, 70,000, whatever makes sense for your topic and how deeply you're trying to cover it. I'm going a little bit deeper in a lot of my topics because my style of writing books is, and really writing anything, is to try to give you all the ammunition you need to not only do a better job in your work, but to fight some of the BS at your job. So that means I have to cover a lot of different perspectives and myths and things like that. So my books tend to be longer. You don't have to do what I'm doing. Okay, let's see. What else can we talk about? So how do I write the book? Now that I have a topic, so for me, let's talk about Customers Know You Suck, the new book. That book started out in February of 2022, and I'm here in December of 2022 talking to you about it. It started out as a plan to be a 4-hour workshop at a conference. And I knew that I wanted to reuse some of the content I already had, which many of you have seen on the channel or at conference talks I've done. And I knew I wanted to write a lot of new content that none of you had seen before. And so I had submitted a 4-hour workshop to a conference, and it was my topic was called Transforming Toward Customer Centricity. How do we make our teams and our processes and our departments more customer-centric? How do we get more focused on the customer? What's blocking us? That was my original topic. How do we make things more customer-centric? To my surprise, the conference talk was accepted. And I now had, I found that out, and I guess, when did I find that out? Maybe January or something. Hi, Niku. Yeah, let's get to Niku's question in a moment. I just want to finish my thought. I don't remember I think I found out in January or February that my workshop was accepted, and then I had to write it. I hadn't really started, and I had a full-time job. So now I was spending every other waking moment outside of the job trying to write this workshop with as much new content as I could create. As a workshop, I needed to create interactive exercises and more immersive things, and I wanted to follow my own meaningful, actionable, helpful universe to make sure that people who took my workshop felt inspired and felt like they could just go do things, go do better things. So I had to write the 4-hour workshop in about 2 months. Hey, Jeffrey, you're on the bus. Okay, I will get to your questions too. So Niku says, when writing, do you imagine readers going in order of chapters versus treating the book as a resource and going into topics out of order? Excellent, excellent question. I have to say that for my books, especially because they're not fiction or fantasy where the story goes in a certain order, I do imagine that people are jumping around. In fact, it was I got 1 or 2 negative comments about my Delta CX book because a couple of people said, this is repetitive. And the funny thing was, I had repeated a couple of small points in a few areas, and I do repeat a couple of points in the new book because I do imagine people jumping around. I think some people will read it end to end, and I hope they will. It was designed to be read end to end, but I also know that some people will skip around. They'll skim through certain parts or they'll jump back to a certain thing. So I tend to treat my business books more as a how-to manual where I know not some people will read it end to end and some people will jump around it. So thank you, Niku. That's a great question. Okay, so back to my story. So I started with the idea that I needed to make a 4-hour workshop. And I used to start a lot of my writing in Microsoft Word. I would just make an outline. And I think it's great advice for all of you. Make an outline of points you want to make or topics you're going to teach about, and then make sub-bullets or A, B, C under that in outline form so that you can start to get things organized and put things together. You know, hey, I want to make a point about things that block companies from being more customer-centric. Okay, what are those points? What are those typical things? Okay, and then what do I know about each of those? What examples have I seen? What evidence do I have behind that? Jeffrey says, I jump around while writing mine. I can imagine ending up with some repetitions too. Yeah, and I've got repetitions on purpose because I know that not everybody who reads chapter 18 will read chapter 16. And so, you know, there might be a point or two that I repeat. Lately, because I do so much conference speaking and some of you have seen me do some slide presentations here on the YouTube channel, I've been doing the outline less and less, not because there's something wrong with it, but because I just go straight into PowerPoint. So yes, I'm the PowerPoint geek and you can all pick on me if you want, but you know, PowerPoint's my jam. I've tried to use Google Slides and I've tried to use Google Docs and whatever, but they just don't have as many features as the client version. So let's take a look at where I kind of ended up with the transforming toward customer centricity. So when I start creating this, I kind of make an outline in PowerPoint. I say, okay, you know, we have these sections. You can make these sections in PowerPoint. They're called sections. This is in the slide sorter view. And then I have a PowerPoint. Let's take a look at this. So I've got, I kind of have like black as my main chapters, blue are kind of my sub-chapters, and orange are my action or exercises. That's how I do it. So that way you can see, even at a glance, even if you can't read these slides very well, you can see there's black slides starting each of these sections because they're kind of like chapters. There's blue slides that have kind of subtopics of that chapter, and then I start getting organized. And what I do is I start creating slides and I write in the title of the slide, even if the slide is blank, what's the point I'm going to make on this slide? And I think about making my point. Then I might start writing in the notes section of the slide, what's some of the things I want to say to make that point? Sometimes it's 2 sentences, sometimes it's 2 pages. So that's how I've been doing it. So it's still kind of an outline form, but it's already taking the manifestation of a presentation, that it's going to be some sort of presentation, conference talk, keynote, workshop, something like that. Some of my slides are reused from earlier presentations. Most of them for transforming toward customer centricity are new. By the way, if you're a curious cat, the next transforming toward customer centricity will be in March. You can learn more about it at the new deltacx.media site. Just go to deltacx.media and then click on media, and you'll see the books and how to order them, and transforming and how to be part of the live workshop. So, which I will be rewriting now to better match the book. So I did this workshop in early April, and I had 14 people at this conference. And but the great part about that was now I'm testing the content. I'm testing the content, and I see what questions people ask. I think that's a really important process in a business-related book, is testing the content with people who probably haven't heard it. So I was able to give this as a half-day workshop in, was it March? It might have been March. And again, 14 people came, so it was a small number, but it was good. I've done it for less. And I got feedback. And the main feedback I got was, make it longer. We wish this were longer. We wish you had some more information. It's a little death by PowerPoint, but we love the exercises. We want more exercises. Okay, so I kept writing it, and I made it a little longer. I added some more slides. I added some more exercises. I allotted more time for the exercises. And I did it again about a month or so later in April. I had 34 people come, and the main comment I got back was, it's a little death by PowerPoint, but it could be even longer. We love this. These exercises are great. They're really helpful. This is really super. And of course, I got small things here and there that I had to fix. So I kept improving it. So notice that my stuff isn't like, hey, I wrote an entire book and then someone read it and gave me feedback. No, I'm taking pieces of this content and testing it. Some of the stuff that's in my book were Medium articles. That way I can write a Medium article and see what people comment on it, see what people say on LinkedIn. I might do it as a show on the YouTube channel and see what people ask or the comments they have. So I think an important part of the process is constant feedback. You know, it's almost like the agile way of writing a book versus the waterfall way of writing a book. You know, the idea being, I'm testing pieces of this content as I go in small or large ways with coaching clients, on the YouTube show, at conference talks, in Medium articles, and I'm saying, okay, people got it, people didn't get it, and keep evolving it and making it better. Sometimes making it better meant making it longer. Sometimes making it better meant making it shorter. Sometimes it meant different visualizations. People thought the visualization didn't make sense. So constant feedback and little tests that I'm running with the content. Joffrey says, smart way to pre-test it. I love these ideas. Yeah, you're welcome. So that's something that I usually do. Usually. So that really, by the time we were in April, May, whatever, I was like, okay, this has really gotten far. I think I did the workshop again in, maybe it was July. By then the economy was starting to be a little funky. I think I had 9 people or 11 people. It wasn't a big group, but again, I could get more feedback on it and see the areas. I could also see some of the people who took the workshop had questions for me a month or 2 later, and I could be like, oh, okay, so when they thought more about this or tried to do something, here's what ended up happening. Aha, add to that. Another thing that tends to inspire me is, for lack of a better word, bullshit on LinkedIn. People write so much absolute bullshit. And of course, y'all send me stuff for the critical thinking stream. A lot of stuff in the book ended up being reactions to things that you've sent me or you've posted to our Slack channel, which of course is free to join. Just go to deltacx.com/links, join our Slack or Discord. So again, I'm lucky enough that I've built up an intelligent community who I can bounce these things off of, even if they don't know that I'm bouncing them off of. You know, I'll do a show and I'll see what people say. And I don't go like, hi, I'm test driving part of my book tonight. I didn't say that. I kept a lot of my stuff more under the vest, more, I didn't release a lot of this content. I didn't make it easy to find. It was mostly in the workshop because, as many of you know, I have a thief. Jared Spool loves to steal from me. And so I didn't want some of my new stuff to get out of fear that he would take it. So that's why people are like, hey, how come you haven't done shows on some of the stuff that's in your book? I just didn't want it to get out early because I think some of it is quite good and in some cases kind of groundbreaking, and I'm really proud of it and excited about it. And I've made a whole bunch of new models, a whole bunch of new exercises, new things to try, new ways to look at things. And I'd already seen Spool take some of my ideas and try to come out with them faster than I came out with my own thing. And so now, of course, that my book's out and we can know that I came out with it first. Not that first is more important. Apple is rarely first to market. But I just wanted to make sure that if there were a dispute as to whose ideas and content this was, it would be clearly mine. Because I have a problem with a person, and I'm being kind by saying he's a person. So this is the way that I have things going. Now, another thing that people should know about my PowerPoints is that I write out my scripts. Now, you might say, yep, Deb, we could tell. We've seen you speak at a conference. We've seen you talk on the YouTube shows with slides. We know you've got a script. I do have a script. I used to try to memorize my stuff, and it was incredibly stressful for me. So I decided, what if my script is just completely written out and I'm just voice acting it? And luckily, I think I'm a decent enough voice actor where that flies. So for example, let's open up one of the slides. Let's open up Four Horsemen. So what I've got here when I do my slides is every word I'm going to say. That way I don't ad-lib, I don't forget. I have the entire script. So that way I can, if I hit this slide and I'm doing this live somewhere, I can say, another model is the Four Horsemen of Bad CX, my registered trademark, Jared Spool. And then the C in the brackets reminds me to click my clicker or remote control or whatever is going to advance the slide because the words on the bottom are animated. So C tells me to click. And then I keep voice acting it. They are frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction. Listen for frustration, confusion, disappointment, and distraction during observational studies and interviews. Watch for them in the voice of the customer. Check for these as CX architects and designers are doing their work. So again, I've got every word that I'm going to say. Now, what's the other benefit of this? I can do an export from PowerPoint into Word. See where that's going? So that's where I say, this little workshop I've got, my Transforming Toward Customer Centricity, maybe I could write a companion book. Elena says, I do the same thing. I use voice to text on one of my practice run-throughs so it keeps my conversational tone, doesn't become too academic. Super. I also, this year I paid for Dragon Naturally Speaking, and I dictated a lot of my books just to save my hands, which really helped. So now that I've got a long workshop. In the end, Transforming Toward Customer Centricity was a full day workshop because people kept saying, make it longer and give us more time to do the exercises. So I had hours and hours of stuff. I exported the notes, because these are in the notes section of the PowerPoint, into Word. I had 40,000 words. Now you might think, you're done, Deb. That's a book. Ship it. But I knew I had more to say than that, and I knew that some of the stuff probably wouldn't work in a book, works better in a workshop. So I pasted everything into a Word document and I started going through it. And I started moving some things around and I started making a few notes. Ooh, say more about this over here and stuff like that. And then I got really busy at my day job. My day job was going to be winding up. I was on a 6-month contract and it was going to be up in early July. And by now I'm in like May or so. Steph says, yay, I arrived home. I'll catch up. Thank you. Elena says, I've considered getting Dragon to replace my current voice to text. How's the learning curve on it? Non-existent. Dragon is really easy to use. I've paid for it a number of times over the last 20 or so years. And so I'm familiar with how to do it, but mostly you're typing. And if there's a mistake, you would either say correct that, or you say correct and you say the stuff. If it doesn't find a good homonym or correction, you say spell that. And then you either spell what you want or you just type it out and it will start to learn it. I also found that it was really naturally quite good with a lot of things that I was saying anyway. So that was really helpful, like CX and UX and stuff like that. So not sponsored, but Dragon, naturally speaking, was definitely worth what I paid. I felt like it saved my hands a lot. Okay, so now I'm going from the PowerPoint over to a Word document. Now again, I'm in Microsoft Word. Why am I not in Google Docs? Because Word does a lot more. That's just it. That's it. If Google made a client version, and sometimes the power goes out here, and if I'm on the cloud, I'm in hell. So client, downloaded, running on my computer, easiest way for me to go. Once we had the editing, then we put it in the cloud, which was hit and miss, but I'll get to that later. So now I pasted it in, and I started moving it around. So actually the original version, which I didn't open up, the original version was probably, backups. Let's go back in time. Let's see how this started. I keep a lot of backups. Transforming version 1. So the book was going to be called Transforming Toward Customer Centricity. Why not, right? That's what the workshop was called, and this was going to be the companion book. So I started pasting in some things based on my PowerPoint slides. What is CX? Understanding the end-to-end journey. What's customer centricity? I had a lot about culture and employee that I ended up taking out. And so I started just pasting stuff in. And then I had a next version. Let's take a look at that. So, and you can see from some of the dates on my stuff, let's do it by date here. And yes, I am on Windows, that that version 1 was January. So I started with a really early version of Transforming Toward Customer Centricity that I just started putting together from some of my early slides. But then you can see version 2 was when I was really in the thick of working on the book, August 8th. And if we take a look at where I ended up here, let's just collapse it down to heading 2. I'm trying to resize my window. And yes, today's show will probably run a little late because I've got a lot to say. It's not resizing. Anyway, these are my chapters and sub-chapters. And those of you who ended up with the book will see this got all reordered. So I hadn't looked at my book in a long time because I was trying to finish up my day job, which finished in early July. And then I said, okay, now I'm going to dive into my book in early August. And I opened up this file in early August, which is why it has an August 8th date, because it's a backup. And I started looking through it and I said, oh my God, this is a disaster. Like, oh my gosh, I don't think this is very good. This is not where I'm not, okay, this isn't going in the right place. I wasn't happy with it. So I had to start working on, well, what's wrong with it? Now, what I tend to do is I do a lot of reading out loud. It looks like my word is frozen, just what I needed. Looks like everything's, I'm super frozen. I hope everybody can still see me. There we go. I had a little blip there. Am I still streaming? Yes. Okay, here's what it looks like on my end. Okay, sorry about that. Looks like I had a little blip there. Okay, so we don't need version 2. So we've got this, and this is, of course, the end. So I just kept writing it and reordering it and adding to it. And when people would tell me stories about their terrible job, I would work some stuff in. Okay, thanks, everybody. And it just got longer and longer and longer, as my books tend to. But I was really worried. I didn't want it to be more than 90,000 words. Of course, it ended up 125,000 words. I know it says almost 129 at the bottom, but I'm taking out table of contents and some of the other stuff that have a lot of words that don't necessarily go towards your reading experience. So this is where I went, and I like Word because I was able to, these heading levels make things really easy for me. So this is kind of my parts and my chapters. The other thing is sub-chapters, and I'm trying to organize this so I can bring back the chat, but we'll get there in a moment. So what I also liked about Word was that I found that those were drag and drop. I found that as I started reordering things and going, no, you know what? I think I need to talk about this before I need to talk about this. It was actually totally drag and drop. So I could take this hierarchy. So how did I get the hierarchy? The hierarchy was created from my styles. So this part 1, let's go to a part. So part 1 is this style. You can see it's got a box around it because that's the style I'm using. That's essentially my H1. Then I've got this, which is my H2, and then I've got level 3, which is my H3. Word understands that, and it shows me this navigation pane where I can see the kind of the table of contents right here, and I can see the order of things. And I can even drag and drop these to reorder them. I can drag parts, I can drag chapters, I can drag sub-chapters. So if I open up this, because this is hierarchic, I can drag these hi Manuel, I can drag and drop the sub-chapters anywhere I want. That was really helpful for making changes to the order of things. I didn't have to do select this, cut it, paste it over here. It was literally just drag it. So that was a really nice feature that made me happy in Microsoft Word, which of course not sponsored by Microsoft Word. Are you kidding? Another thing I really liked was that, and I learned this late in the game, but it was really helpful, was that a lot of people who've used Word and things like it are used to this numbering thing up here, creating a numbering system. And you use it for bullet points or an outline, but you can actually use that in here. So as you can see, my part is the gray box tells me this is a dynamically generated piece of information from Word. I didn't type part 1. It does that automatically because this is a numbering system. Same for chapter 1. I didn't type chapter 1. It is a numbering system. That means if I were to drag and drop and reorder my stuff, Word is going to renumber it, which was so nice. I also used the auto stuff to put it into the footer of the book. So I didn't have to type chapter 1, name of chapter on the bottom of every page. Word does that automatically for me. It's dropping in the chapter number and it's dropping in the chapter name. Yeah, Joffrey says, I tried doing it on Google Docs. You can't. I was so pissed. Steph says, oh, I didn't know you could drag and drop to reorder in Word. Nice trick even for research documents. Yeah. So again, if I go to chapter 2, you can see now at the bottom it says chapter 2, terms and models. And so that's a really nice touch. Yeah, Elena says, I love finding little features like these. And also, if we take a look quickly at like the 2 pages side by side, you can also see that Word understands, though this might be the wrong file. Do I have the right file or the wrong file? It looks like I messed this up. Did I mess this up? Yeah, it looks like I messed this up, so I'll have to fix this, but you can have different headers and footers on the right and left page, and so you can have, so you know, these weren't supposed to be here. These, one should be on the name should be on the outside. It should be where the page number is. So some of you are going to get a book where my name is on the inside, should be on the outside. Okay, I'm going to find mistakes in this thing forever. It is what it is. But basically, the bottom, so small mistake, no, who cares? But I like the way that I could do headers and footers and do them differently. It took me hours and hours to figure it out. It was not easy, but I got there. I also use the word styles very heavily, and that way if I want to change something in the document, it's really easy for me to do that globally. So if I decide that all of these callouts have a different font or color or text size or line spacing, I can just do that from modifying the word style rather than trying to find, you know, it's like CSS, rather than trying to find every instance of it. I don't think Google Docs really does that. They have a couple of built-in styles, but they don't get as granular as word styles do, where I can go on and on and on, not just about font and color and layout, but also paragraph spacing and how do the lines break, and you know, is there shading? Is there a border around it? Stuff like that. So you can see, like, I have these little call out boxes, and this is my try it. So I have styles for these. And so basically the little headline here is this one. I called it Z call out header, and I just gave it a Z so it was at the end of the styles list because it alphabetizes them, which is so silly. Steph says, sounds like the styles in Acture, wink, wink. Yeah. So I had Z call out header and Z call out text for the text under it. And then I also have orange boxes. So I have Z call out header and Z call out text for the orange boxes. I don't think, yeah, here's my first. Here's an orange box. So that was these. Then I had all styles for the bullets and the sub bullets and some other stuff, and that way I had global control, and I could really mess around later with what size did I want my font and how did I want my line spacing, because I wanted it to be readable but not too big because the book was getting too long and I'm trying to make it look shorter. So I ended up going with 9.5 point Noto serif. I did some investigation into dyslexia and what's the best font, and it's really quite split right now, that some people prefer serif fonts and some people prefer sans serif fonts, and I just didn't see anything that totally agreed. So I went with this because I found it to be a really nice readable font even at a smaller size. And then I used Nunito for some of my other headlines and other stuff. So this is not a hugely visually designed book. This isn't going to look like Abby's diagrams book or Trina's ethical design book, you know, which I certainly recommend both of those, but this isn't gonna look like that. So, you know, heads up, you know, this is my style. Now, the people who are doing the more designed books are usually doing them in InDesign. That's not my thing. I am definitely more of a Word person. I don't know. I haven't seen InDesign in many years. I used it maybe 10 years ago. Before that, Quark Express. Hands up, who remembers Quark? So I don't really know if InDesign does some of these things as well as Word. It might, but all I can say is Word made a lot of things very easy for me until it came to editing, when I wanted to put it on the Microsoft cloud and have people leave comments and stuff like that. That was ugly. Word really needs to take a look at Google Docs, but the problem was if I had pasted this into Google Docs, I would have lost all of my formatting, so I had to put it on the Microsoft cloud and invite people to use the Microsoft cloud, and honestly, it was terrible. So I'm extra grateful to my editors. Yes, I had a pile of editors who were all looking not just at spelling or grammar or whatever, but they were mostly content editors. Does this make sense? Does this make sense if English is not your first language? You know, does this feel meaningful, actionable, and helpful? Things like that. So we had a whole 2 months of editing where a whole bunch of people who signed a non-disclosure and I won't tell Jared Spool agreement went through the book. Some people read it all, some people read a lot of it, and some people read very little of it, but I'm grateful to all the people. We even had one of the editors tested every link, and there's almost 100 links, and they tested every link, for which I am very grateful. Jeffrey says, some readers like Kindle can override font family. Not sure what the requirements are for that. I'm glad you asked. Here's how you make a Kindle. So you can then bring, I can't bring it down, so I'm going to put this here. You can then bring this into the Kindle Create program. Warning, Kindle Create sucks. And boy, have I let them know. So you can bring a Word document in, but honestly, Kindle eats a lot of the formatting, which is ridiculous because I'm using standard styles like H1, H2. For whatever reason, Kindle was terrible, and I had to do about an hour of some manual reformatting. Now, Jeffrey's right. Kindle is going to override some of your fonts. You can try to embed them, but again, Kindle's probably going to override them anyway, so my book ends up being, I think, kind of Bookerly and Open Sans or something like that, and I just go, whatever, fine. So with Kindle, you can make a bunch of front matter pages, and then you can start making chapters. And they don't really understand chapters and sub-chapters. They understand chapters or a chapter subtitle. So both my parts and my chapters in Kindle are treated as chapters, which means they're in the table of contents and you can go to them. They're not hierarchic. So here I can do the Kindle thing and I can see how it's going to look. There's a separate program you can download called Kindle Previewer, and it emulates a Kindle, both a Kindle e-reader, a Kindle on a tablet, a Kindle app on a tablet, and a Kindle app on a phone. You can check it. Mostly you're checking that your table of contents works, in my opinion, because your words are your words. But Kindle Create is terrible. Excuse me, you do not want to write your book in it. You can see it did keep most of my formatting, so that's pretty cool. It's going to look good, especially on a color screen. I did have to change some of my colors because on e-inks and stuff, they were looking too light. I had a lighter blue text link. And so these were some things that we got, like, because Pier Mario uses a Kobo, so we would take an EPUB and we would put it on his Kobo and we would check it. We did a lot of checking of different types of devices. But mostly you want to make sure that table of contents works so people can jump to the different chapters and that functions well. Kindle's very strict about what goes in the front matter, what's in the body, and what's in the back matter. And you'll also notice if you open up a Kindle book, it opens up automatically to the preface. So even though I have stuff I wish people could see before that, you know, I've got a legal notice, I've got a dedication, I've got table of contents. When you open up your Kindle, it usually opens up right to here, and not everybody knows their stuff before this. So womp womp, sad trombone. So that's a little bit about making your Kindle. Jeffrey said, I tried the preview for Kindle. I thought I was losing my eyeballs. So, well, if you think you're losing your eyeballs, wait until you see Calibre. So Calibre looks like it's from Microsoft Access days, but it functions. And basically, the new Kindle Create spits out Kindle's proprietary format, and it can also spit out an EPUB. But when I previewed the EPUB in Calibre, a couple of things weren't quite right. And when we opened the EPUB on Pier Mario's Kobo, a couple of things weren't quite right. This led me to have to manipulate some of the CSS manually, which I did. So, for example, if you come here, I had to fix this chapter title size. It was humongous, and I didn't know why, because it should have just come straight in from Kindle's chapter size, but it didn't. So, and there's obviously, because these things are made by bots, there's a lot of garbage HTML and CSS in this. I didn't bother trying to hand code this any better. I just fixed my chapter sizes with some copy paste and fixed my metadata and got my cover in there, and boom, there was my EPUB. So that's how I did EPUB. Steph says, haha, Caliber, yeah. Good to change format, but gosh, the UI is horrible. Yeah, it's from another era. So let's talk about publishing. And for that, I'll just go back to a big picture of me. So we'll talk about publishing, and then we'll talk about audiobook, and that'll probably be it for today. And we probably will run a little late because I do want to have a very complete show about this, and then you can always post your questions under the YouTube video if you'd like. And of course, if you dig what we do here, please subscribe and tell some friends. I am still shadow banned on YouTube, so I need love. Okay, so let's talk about publishing. So a common question is, do I need a publisher? Do I need to be published by O'Reilly or Wiley or Rosenfeld, assuming you're in the UX book universe? And if you're not in the UX book universe, you could be looking at Penguin or, any of the famous or lesser publishers. Joffrey says, okay, so nowadays creating an ebook is still a really crafty process. Yeah, there was a lot of manual work involved and a lot of manual testing, loading it up to Pier Mario's Kobo, checking how it looked, checking how things looked on e-ink compared to how did they look at the Kindle app on my Android phone, which would be in full color, etc. So yeah, we did a lot of testing and hopefully got it right. Though, of course, now I see my book has Debbie Levitt in the wrong. It's right justified when it should be left justified. But again, may that be the biggest problem of my book. You'll all have the early print copies where I got that wrong. Publishers. So to me, publishers are kind of like record companies. Nowadays musicians can have some fame and some fortune even without a record company releasing their record. They can get their song out themselves. They can get it on Spotify and Google and YouTube Music and Apple Music and whatever, and they can sell it and they can keep the money and they can book concerts and make the money. And so the question now is very often, what do I need a publisher for? Now, a publishing company typically does a few things, but remember, they get paid to do this. They are not doing this altruistically. Some of them will help you with your book's concept, like from the very start, like what do I write about and how do I write it? Some of them will co-write the book with you. Some of them will hire a ghostwriter or co-writer to work with you on it. One publisher out there who I won't name, if you go to their site, it says that they don't really want a book you've already written. They want the opportunity to co-write it with you. No, thank you. No gracias. I'm worried that is going to change the voice of some of the voices that should not be changed. So no thanks. So publishing companies very often are claiming to offer you these services, and typically they're claiming to offer you two key things that any author wants. Distribution, which is getting your book out there, getting it on Amazon, getting it into stores, getting it placed in different places, and marketing. So you imagine, wow, if I publish with O'Reilly or Penguin or whoever, they're going to put their marketing machine behind me, and they're really going to make sure people know about this book and are buying it. You'd think that, but I have seen that very not happen. So I have had a bad experience with a well-known publisher who, for whom I did something and they didn't market it pretty much at all. It was surreal. I think they wrote one tweet and it was incorrect and I told them to take it down. So you have to really think about, what do I need? What do I need that I can't do myself? What do I expect to get from a publisher or a relationship? And what do I expect to pay for? Very often you are paying for ghostwriters and editors and things like that. These people are not doing this for free. A publishing company might offer it to you for free, but you know they're going to take that money some way. You might make less on each book sale, or they might bill you for it later. So you have to really read contracts very carefully. When I was writing Delta CX, I wrote to a bunch of publishers and I said, send me your contract. I want to see what publishing with you would be like. And I found that most of the contracts said that they would own or co-own my work, that they had the right to do whatever they wanted with it, and that I might lose control of that content, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was a big no for me. I did not want them to have that kind of ability to make derivative works and some of the wording that you see in legal contracts. So all in all, I decided to self-publish because I didn't like anybody's contract and I didn't think they were going to offer me anything that great. Books generally don't make a lot of money unless you are a very famous person and you get paid well for your book because the company knows they're probably going to sell millions of them. But you and I hopefully will sell millions, but it's less likely. So, make sure you remember that you're writing the book more to help people or have it be a companion to your workshop or have it be something that might open the door to some speaking or jobs, not because you're going to make a mountain of money on the book itself, which I'll talk about in a moment because we'll go into my Amazon account. So I don't need a publisher to publish a book. I don't need a publisher to put the book on Amazon. I can do that. It's, again, like using Calibre or Kindle Create. It's bumpy, but you can learn it. It's a learning curve, but you can learn it. You don't need a publishing company to put the book on Amazon. You can do it yourself. As we've learned in publishing the book, Amazon doesn't sell the book everywhere. So I've started with putting the book on Amazon. I put up a Kindle format. I put up a paperback format, I put up a hardcover format, and I put up a paperback with large print. And ultimately, that's what Amazon has, but it doesn't offer that in all countries because Amazon is doing print on demand. And so note the difference between print on demand and more traditional publishing. More traditional publishing, they say, okay, how many of these do we think we can sell? Okay, let's print 5,000 of them. Now we've cut down all those trees. We have 5,000 books that have to sit in a warehouse somewhere. And when somebody orders them or a bunch of them, they get shipped. To me, print on demand is hopefully a little bit more eco because your book is it's not in a warehouse. It doesn't exist until somebody orders it. Then it's printed and then it's shipped out. So that means it's not everywhere Amazon has a warehouse because I didn't send them the books. Now I can. I would have to sign up as an Amazon third-party seller. I would have to print the books and have them sent to me or have them sent to Amazon. And then Amazon will have them in a warehouse. They won't be print on demand. And then they could be shipped from some of these countries where Amazon doesn't do print on demand. I'm also looking into just finding print on demand companies in some of the countries that are requesting it, which so far is India and Brazil, or are India and Brazil. So I'm working on finding those companies and getting the book up through them, and then they would put the book up on Amazon and they get the order and they split the money with me. So that gets complicated fast, unfortunately. Let's talk a little bit about Amazon. So putting a book on Amazon, you're going to their site called KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. Now, don't be fooled by the K for Kindle. This is also for your print books as well. So here you can see I have Customers Know You Suck as the Kindle with its matching paperback and its hardcover, and then separately I have the large print. Now, technically I could ask Amazon to put them all together, but they'd have to have the same same title and the same metadata and all that stuff. That's not a bad thing, but I was worried about people being confused about which is the large print and which is the regular print. So I decided to not list them together, and they are listed separately. That's how when you go on Amazon, you see Kindle, hardcover, and paperback, because here in Kindle, they are, in KDP, they're linked. I forgot to set this so that I can see your questions. Let me know if questions come up. So in here, there's it looks like a 3-step process because it's 3 screens, but every screen has a lot of information on it. Things like the title, the author, the description, the keywords, the categories. Then you have to get the ISBN. I get mine from Bowker, so I buy my ISBNs. You can get them from other places, but I like to control that stuff. You put up, there's a whole cover process. Your cover changes sizes based on how thick your book is. So sometimes you have to last minute redesign your cover because you've added pages or removed pages. So it definitely does get complicated. The cool thing also about Amazon is that I can order author copies, as you see on my screen, which means Amazon gives them to me at their cost. Like the cost to print the book, which we know has some profit in there for Amazon. So if the paperback is $17.97, I can order them for about $5 because that's Amazon's printing cost. Now you might think, whoa, Debbie makes $13 on every book because that's what Amazon charges to print. Not so fast. Let's talk about Amazon pricing, which some of you might find upsetting, but here you go. So here's my settings page, and here's where I decide pricing. And it will tell me how much money I make. Now, I make a decent amount of money on each book. If $6, €7 is a decent amount. But notice that's all I make because Amazon takes money to print the book and then they keep part of the sale. So it's not like, oh, once you get past the printing cost, you keep the rest. You do not. And also note that bookstores expect you to discount. When a bookstore buys your books, they expect that to be discounted 55%. So if I were selling an $18 book to a bookstore, they probably want to pay $8 and something. And as you can tell, by the time you're done paying for printing and some other profits that the printer takes, you might be making $1 a book, $3 a book. So again, when you're self-publishing, you're not necessarily in it for the money. I can tell you that in my first few days of selling my book, because my book's been out for a few days, it has sold about 200 copies and I've made about $1,200. Now, obviously, that's going to kind of wax and wane because obviously I'm not doing a huge amount of marketing right now because people are distracted by the holidays. I'll do more marketing next year, but that marketing will cost me money. So I'm going to spend money and then I'll sell books and I'll make money, but I imagine I'm probably going to spend more money than I'm going to make. But again, the hope is that the book will be something people find fun and interesting and exciting, and they want me to maybe do some paid speaking or consulting or hire me for something, and that's really where the money would be made in my case. So just a little bit of warning about that. And then there's also ACX, which is the behind the scenes website for Audible. So this is where you are loading up your audiobook tracks and preparing them and making sure that Audible likes your files. They do an analysis and they tell you if any of your files have errors because they won't let you release the audiobook with errors. So I'm still working on this. I've got some of the chapters done, but a lot of them not. So I'm hoping to have this done by Christmas. But let's talk about audiobook a little bit. Audiobook is important. And by the way, so is the large print. I was really surprised. I think I've sold 30 large prints right now out of the 200 I've sold. You would think, like, who would want a 777-page large print book? But people do. And so great for accessibility, great for humans. Don't shy away from creating a large print book that's very long. People who like large print books expect them to be long. So, accessibility, y'all. Let's talk about the audiobook. Now, for the audiobook, you have a couple of options. You can post your request on the ACX website, and it's almost like a dating website. ACX will try to find you a narrator. You can pay the narrator by their time. You can pay the narrator by what's called PFH, which is per finished hour. So notice, for example, that chapter 5 is 34 minutes long. That's 34 finished minutes of audio. Even if it took me 10 hours to record it and edit it, that's the finished hour, or in this case, the finished 34 minutes. Or you can offer to split the audiobook sales with the narrator talent. You can also narrate your own book, which of course I'm doing, which should surprise nobody. But of course, then the question becomes, who's going to edit that? Because it is a full-time job for weeks and weeks and weeks. Let's talk about that. This is Reaper. This is a digital audio workstation. This is where I've been recording and editing the audiobook. I recorded for 9 days. So I've got 9 days of recordings in here. I am kind of working on day 3. So that's kind of as far as I've gotten, but I'm prepared to share a little bit of this with you. And so let me turn that on and show you a little bit of what goes into editing an audiobook, because not only do you have to edit out mistakes, but there's other stuff happening too. So let's take a listen to what it sounds like if I turn off all of the effects. And let's find an area that's funky. Here we go. So, starting in chapter 1. I know my American Express card is good, but I tried again, this time with a MasterCard. This erased the entire form, including my billing address, which would have been the same. Okay, so if you can hear that, and tell me if you can't, one thing you'll notice about that is, hey, it sounds like me, but it's not as loud, and you can see and hear my breaths. And that can be very distracting for some people. Now, of course, you hear me all the time on YouTube, you hear me breathe, and you probably weren't even thinking about it. But if you're going to listen to me for a long time, the breaths can be very overwhelming. And so listen to that again. Now that I've said something, think about the breaths. I know my American Express card is good, but I tried again, this time with a MasterCard. This erased the entire form, including my billing address, which would have been the same. I entered the card information. Thanks, Ralitza. See you later. So now the question is, what do you do about the breaths? So I use a whole bunch of plugins on my tracks. So I've got a compressor, I've got a gate, I've got a de-breath plugin, which will remove my breaths, but it's a little aggressive, and I'll talk about that in a moment. I have a mouth declicker because I'm not doing ASMR, and you definitely do not want to hear me read a book while hearing terrible. So this will automatically remove them. I have a de-plosive. Plosives are usually p, t, k in English. And they're the sounds that really explode and sound overwhelming and can really punch you in the face. So I've got the de-plosive, which will bring those down a little bit. I've got a de-esser. Have you ever listened to something and thought the S's sounded so sharp that it was like someone was slicing your head with a knife? So the de-esser will bring down the S's. Then I've got refer, which is not totally worth talking about. It takes out some of my room noise. And then I've got EQ, which I'm just using to warm up my voice a little bit, cut some of the mids. So again, now you don't have to know this. You can hire someone else to edit your audiobook. I happen to have a background in sound engineering, so this is long and annoying, but relatively comfortable for me. So let's hear what this sounds like with and without the effects. I know my American Express card is good, but I tried again, this time with a MasterCard. This erased the entire form, including my billing address, which would have been the same. Okay, now let's turn on all of the effects and hear what it sounds like. I know my American Express card is good, but I tried again, this time with a MasterCard. This erased the entire form, including my billing address, which would have been the same. I entered the card information and retyped. Hey, Kayleen. So I hope everybody can hear that has a rounder, warmer sound. The mouth clicks are gone. The breaths are gone. But I found that I used so many plugins, and some of them are aggressive, that I had to bypass some of them sometimes. So for example, if we turn this one off for a moment, take a listen to this sentence. This erased the entire form, including my billing address. Did you hear the word including? It was missing my plosive, including. You didn't get including, you got inluding. Now what happened there? My breath plugin thought k was a breath and took it out. Listen again. This erased the entire form, including my billing address, which would have been. So now what do? You can't fine-tune the plugin that well. So what I have to do as I listen to this and I edit it is I am manually drawing a box in here and I'm saying for just this moment in time, bypass the breath plugin. Breath plugin, I don't want you to do anything. And that way I can take out the breath. I've got a couple of other things that I'm drawing in here manually as well. You can see, so here's one here. What do you think this is? This is the volume. What happened? There were some clicks, there were some resonance. Maybe I bumped into the mic, or I took a breath, but the breath plugin didn't take it all the way out, and it ends up sounding like a weird little click or glitch. So I draw that the volume is bottoming out. And that way I know you won't hear anything for what is essentially a quarter of a second. Kayleen says, this reminds me of Nick and Logic Pro. Yeah, this is a competitor to Logic Pro. It's called Reaper. It's about $60. Jeffrey says, it's an American to Brit accent plugin. Yeah, that doesn't work. So, here, contact customer support. Stories like these highlight the struggle. So now you saw that there was that nice pause there, but if I bypass that, you'd hear there's some sort of click there, and I heard it, and so I wanted to bottom it out. So many plugins and manual adjustments. Yeah, because you can let the plugins run, but then you get mistakes like missing pieces of words, like is probably here. Every purple block you see on my screen is a missing part of a word that I had to put back because it's probably really my accent. I mean, the breath plugin is doing the best that it can, but it thinks that some of my more plosive sounds are breaths. You can actually watch the breath plugin in action. How much negative word of mouth would it take for companies to decide that fixing poor customer experiences is a priority? What is the cost of acquisition, the cost of sales, marketing, and other efforts to win a new customer? How much pain does our company need to feel before we take action? So there you go. So remember, you can record your own audiobook, but you would really need to know a lot of stuff about sound engineering. It's not as easy as I'm just going to download Reaper or Audacity or my Mac's got Logic on it or GarageBand. There's a lot of stuff here that you need to know about if you want it to end up sounding really good and professional. And also, there's a lot of specific numbers that your file has to end up having for Audible to be happy with it. And so you can do this yourself, but again, it does take an entire skill set. Just so you know, when all is said and done, I spent 9 days recording this. Take this off. I spent 9 days recording this, and I will probably have spent, I don't know, 20 days editing it. So Kayleen says, do you like pop filters? I don't have to think about a pop filter because this microphone has foam on it. So typically you don't need a pop filter. If your microphone has foam, you can pick one or the other. You usually don't need both. But hypothetically, even a pop filter or a foam is not necessarily going to stop a plosive. Let's also talk very quickly about if you are going to narrate your book, you have to be very careful of your pronunciation, no matter what language this is. So this could be your first language, your second language, whatever it is. Think about pronunciation. I tend to speak very carefully and deliberately when I'm doing my shows and my talks because that is my style. I talk probably a little bit more sloppily when I'm just talking to Pier Mario around the house. I probably let a little bit of my old accent out. But it's extremely exhausting to do the audiobook because you really have to over-enunciate just to get it to sound like what you just heard. So if I crack open my book and I read it to you casually, because people think, oh, this can't be so hard. You just sit in front of a mic and you read your book. So here's the sentences that you just heard. So let's say I don't try very hard and I just read it very casually. I spent hours attempting to buy some plane tickets. I selected American Express and spent some time typing in all the details and the matching billing address. Now, not only is that a little lackluster, but if you heard it back, you would be like, wow, Deb didn't even say half of those letters. That was just Schwa City. So you have to end up over-enunciating just for it to sound halfway normal. So you would have to say something like, I spent hours attempting to buy plane tickets. I selected American Express and spent some time typing in all of the details and the matching billing address. After submitting the checkout form, a message said, so I know right now I might look and sound really weird, like, wow, Deb's really overdoing it, but you probably didn't think that when I played you the clips just now from here. You probably didn't think Deb's overdoing it, but I had to read it like that for it to sound like what you heard. That meant I had to make sure, and let's do this together now, I had to make sure that all of the consonants are pronounced. And now I missed some. Sometimes I slurred and, it sounds like and I say t instead of to. But the cleaner you can make that, the more professional it sounds. So I tried. Now, again, you'll still catch some of my accent in there. I don't always say, we invite you to re-enter your card. Sometimes I said, we invite you to, because that's from my accent, to re-enter your card. So I'm not going to re-record it. There's many well-pronounced words and some accenty moments. So just know you can record your audiobook, but it really is a whole new set of skills, both in the voice acting and in the editing. Also note that in the voice acting, where is it? I did use a dog clicker. So when you make a mistake, you do that, and that way you can see it in your waveforms, and it's a little easier for you to do the editing because you can see a mistake is coming, and you can edit it before you hear it, and that can save you a little bit of time. But yeah, it's a little wacky and annoying. So yeah, you need to have a set of voice acting skills, sound engineering skills, and now I'm doing all of the editing. Luckily, I don't have to cut pieces out and move pieces to other places, not too much. But there's also some mistakes that I've made where I do have to copy and paste some things in. And so also as a safety, I recorded this yellow track, which I called concatenation, which is just me saying a bunch of numbers in case I forgot to say a number. And that way I can piece it together later. So, because I do a lot of numbered lists in the book, I took all the bulleted lists and I read them as numbers so people hearing it can get a sense that I'm talking about a new bullet. So I just recorded 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you move your hands a lot when you do voice acting, and so if you saw me, you would see like a lot of this when I'm speaking. You really have to keep your energy up. You can tell a little bit in some chapters where my energy was a little bit lower. You really can. I think you can. But I can't re-record this. I spent 9 days on it, and it was grueling. So sorry for the slightly low energy. Yeah, so that's how, if you ever wonder how does a phone system work, they get a voice actor in who usually says the number 3 ways. They say the number is if it's the start of something, the middle of something, and the end of something. So we have to say 1, 1, and 1. And that way it reads back to you, your phone number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3. I learned it in voice acting school. So that's some of the stuff that I recorded in case I heard it later and I realized I didn't do the numbers in the right order, or I missed a number, or I forgot to say a number. I've pieced in a couple of other things that I forgot to say. At the end of a bulleted list, I say end of list. And there were a couple of lists I forgot to say that for, so I had to copy and paste that over. So there's all kinds of things that go into this. Again, this is weeks and weeks of work. And sometimes the publishing company says, hey, we're going to cover that. We're going to turn your book into an audiobook. So remember, that does take a lot of stuff off of you, but it's not like that's free. That's going to come back to you in one way or another. You ultimately pay for all these things. Publishing companies aren't altruistic. These things aren't free. They're going to be paid in one way or another, through billing you later, through taking some of your book sales or taking other things. You just have to see what's in that contract. And I do want to mention very quickly that I have started a new self-publishing imprint. It's kind of like a publishing company, but not. And it's called Delta CX Media. And we've got a new website. This website is up, deltacx.media. And the idea is that it's going to be a sort of collective. And we're not really going to handle marketing for people, but we're going to take people whose books ideas we like and support, and we're going to make sure that they get all the help and support they need through the whole process. Because obviously here I'm giving you the high level, hey, if you want to do it yourself, here's some things to know. But this would be more in the weeds, personally coaching people. And then it's kind of a collective where we hope that, say Jeff and Steph write a book or separately, and they've got Delta CX Media on there. Someone might go, Delta CX Media, I wonder what else they publish, and so that makes it kind of a collective. And my thought is probably for the first few authors, I won't charge them anything, just so I can get a feel of how much work it is. But then I'm thinking about something low, like maybe charging people $500 a year, just for like kind of coaching, but ultimately it's not, I can't necessarily give them other things for free. Like oh, we forgot to talk about cover art. Let's talk quickly about cover art. Everybody loves the cover art, and they should. Friend of the show, Malika, did it, Malika Fraser, and it came from, we held a contest in my community. Now, of course, there's many ways to design a book cover. If you're artistic, you can do it. I'm not, as many of you know. So, and I had some ideas. My idea, for those of you who voted in the contest that we ran, my idea was the cover that was full of 1-star reviews. And all of those 1-star reviews were real, by the way. I'd found them online. So I had an idea of like a cover filled with 1-star reviews. But we got covers from all different people. I gave them a little bit of money to come up with something, and then we had some people vote. I think we had like 80, 90, 100 votes. This one came in second. I chose it over the one that came in first, even though the one that came in first was also excellent. And this is the one we went with. So the great thing about someone like Malika, who you should absolutely throw money at, is not only did she do all the artwork in the different sizes and formats and CMYK and RGB that I needed, but this was her concept. So, there are times where you tell a creative person your concept and they make that. But here I just gave her I gave everybody kind of guidelines of things I didn't want the book cover to be, things I kind of wanted the book cover to be. I didn't give them the 1-star reviews idea, what some competing books look like, color schemes, and she came up with the concept. So to me, that's just super creative. That's just great. So so you need a book cover. You need an artist. You can try to do it yourself, but everyone can tell the books I've done myself just because I'm not an artist. Some of you are great artists and you're lucky. But then again, I'm a terrible artist, but I'm a sound engineer. So, well, it worked out. Don't forget you need a book cover and you're going to need lots of other graphics to go with it. We've also been doing merch in a Redbubble shop at deltacx.shop, and Malika helped prepare some of the files for that. And then we've put some other files up as well. So, these are all things that you have to think about. So what's not part of all this? The marketing. So I'm not great at book marketing, and especially because I want this book to reach people outside of my usual audience. My usual audience is UX and some CX people, but I'm trying to reach product managers, vice president of product, marketers, strategists, executives. I'm trying to reach a lot of people that I normally don't reach, and for that I'm going to need marketing help. So I'm looking at hiring a professional book marketer. They would get paid a lot of money, but hopefully they know how to help this get out there, how to get me in different interviews, in different things that the desired audience will see and read, because I can reach my LinkedIn followers, I can reach you, but I don't really have a great way to reach agile coaches and product managers and things like that. So I will be paying a book marketing company for that. So again, Delta CX Media is going to be more of a collective to support and help authors through their process. Help them write a great book, help them edit a great book, help them get a great cover, great title. Let me talk quickly about the title, because many of you heard from the beginning of the story that the book was called Transforming Toward Customer Centricity to match the workshop that I do. The workshop is going to still be called Transforming Toward Customer Centricity. It's not going to be called Customers Know You Suck. The book is, of course, called Customers Know You Suck. And it was a few months ago where, after reading my own book out loud multiple times, which is something I do as part of my own writing and editing process, I read it out loud, I see how it sounds. I just felt like transforming toward customer centricity, while it is the core of the book, how do you transform to be more customer centric? Yes, it's definitely about that. Is there a catchier title than that? Is there a better title than that? And I didn't really go through much of a process with this. It just kind of fell out of me one day. It was just like, I know I don't want to swear, but I just get the feeling I need something that's a little bit more snappy and a little bit more of also another point in the book, you're not fooling anybody. Your stuff that you think is good enough, your MVPs, your crappy betas, your broken stuff, the stuff you didn't fix later, you're not fooling anybody. Customers know you suck. You know you suck. You have crappy ratings. You have angry tweets. Your stock price went down. This isn't a secret. Customers know you suck. And I just remember thinking, I would have to ask Pier Mario, and he's not here now, but I think I just remember thinking one day, I think I want to call the book Customers Know You Suck. And I kind of passed that around my community a little bit, and I think a couple of people were like, I don't know if I want to be, in an airport holding up a book that says Customers Know You Suck. And, people had valid concerns about it. Some people thought it was going to turn into a negative meme. But I said, I think I like it. I think it's got pizzazz, right? Where's my pizzazz? And I wrote to the book marketing agency that I hope to hire. I'm on their waiting list, and they've been very nice to me. I had a nice call with them in the summer, and I said, I'm thinking about calling my book this. What do you think? And they said, we love it. They said, you just need a subtitle that explains what the book is about. The marketing agency said the title has to be a grabber, has to be catchy, and the subtitle has to tell you what the book is actually about, if the title isn't going to. And many of you in the community know I agonized over the subtitle for months and hired my PR person to help me. And finally we landed on, oh, this is the old one. I just panicked. Where's the new one? Here it is. So the old subtitle was How to Fix Product Market Fit and Improve Growth, Retention, and Satisfaction. That's okay. But that's not where we landed. We landed on actionable CX strategies to better understand, attract, and retain customers. Because I was hoping that would really appeal to that larger book audience and all the people thinking about CX. So I know I meant to go about an hour and a half today. This is an extra long show, thanks to people who are staying or bouncing in and out. Any last questions I can take about my book process? I know Jeffrey wanted to know, how do I keep it from being too long? I struggle with that. My books are too long. My articles are too long. I am just a long-winded person. My show is too long. And I think, having some good editors and advisors can help you with that. In my case, the editors read the book and said, I don't really see anything that I would cut. There's a lot of good stuff in here. And as Niku pointed out at the beginning, I expect people to kind of jump around and read things as they need it. So it's, it's a little long, but it's a how-to manual. A couple of things we cut, and I made them a Medium article, and then I just linked to it in the book. So in the book, I said, hey, there's more I want you to know about this, but it's in a Medium article. Please go here. Also note that for the links in the book, I use a URL shortener. For the book links and some other stuff, I got cxcc.to. It's short. It spells the way it sounds. When I say CXCC, most of you know what letters those are. And it stands for CX for customer experience and CC for customer centricity. So it's roughly relevant. Some of you also know I use deltacx.com deltacx.link. And here I bought a .to. And so the great thing about a URL shortener, which I use short.io, not sponsored, I'm not even paying them, is if I find a mistake in a link later or I have to change where that link goes, I'm not like, oh no, my book has all this in it, help, help. I can just go to the URL shortener and change all the links. URL shortener. All right. If there are no other questions, I will wrap it up and just thank everybody for staying extra long for the book stream. If you have any other questions after watching this or questions, put them in the YouTube chat. I always respond to YouTube comment questions that aren't porn spam. If you would like me to consider publishing your book through Delta CX Media, through the collective, let me know. Again, there is a price on the website now, but I'm thinking of not charging the first few authors just to see how much work really goes in. Oh, thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you. Time and pieces of advice. Anytime. Very sweet of you to donate. I will eat the chocolate chips. So yeah, deltacx.media for the Customers Know You Suck book, for the Transforming Toward Customer Centricity workshop. The next one is going to be March 2023. It is nicely priced. I think it is under $200 American per person. And we also have, I think, a $27 ticket for people who can't afford or don't want to afford the regular price. Kayleen says it was hard to cut anything from the book. It was too good. Yeah, I have to put comments back on the screen. Thank you. Kayleen was one of our super editors who actually read almost every page because I added a few when she wasn't looking. So yeah, it was hard to cut from the book, and I was trying to cut 35,000 words, which is a book. And so it is what it is. And now I'm just going to work on the audiobook, which I think is going to take me most of the next few weeks. But luckily, over in our Slack channel, we have a new channel, which if you're watching this in December 2022, we have people volunteering to listen to the chapters and help me find some of those mistakes where there are clicks or part of a word got chopped out. Yeah, is that a moose? What is that, dog? I can't even tell. I hate wearing my glasses. So if you'd like to volunteer to listen to the audiobook chapters, please do. Thank you. Thank you. There's a Slack channel for that. And I'm just editing as fast as I can, but the QA team keep finding mistakes, for which I'm very grateful. That way I can fix them before people paying for the Audible version hear the mistakes. Wah, wah. All right, so with that, I'm going to wind this up. Thank you again to everybody for staying for an extra long show. I'll see you tomorrow for critical thinking, and if you have any other questions, let me know. Happy writing. Bye. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are